Hello, seventh graders. This is Mrs. Alexander, and in this flipped preview video, I'd like to introduce you to our next reading assignment, which is a Shakespeare play called Julius Caesar. I'm sure many of you are familiar with who Julius Caesar is, and maybe even a little bit of a historical background regarding his story and his impact on history. You'll see behind me a nice Roman forum, which is setting the stage for our play that we will be reading as a class, both in live classes and also in our live class performance. So I'd like to introduce you and walk you through some resources and some helpful tips to get you started successfully completing, understanding, and analyzing this play, this Shakespeare play, which is adapted to young readers, Julius Caesar. So this gets started in English 7B in lesson 4.05. I'd like to walk you through, if I was a student in English 7B, what I would be doing to get ready for this assignment, this assigned reading. So I'm going to share my screen to walk you through what you can do to be successful in English 7B and reading Julius Caesar. So you'll see here I'm in English 7B. I'm here on my home page. And the first thing I do is probably navigate over to lesson 4.05, which is A, Julius Caesar. This is our introduction to this play, and this is where we will read Act 1. So I'm clicking here on the lesson introduction, and I'd really like to highlight what you should be doing as a student to be successful. This happens in every single lesson. So here we are getting a nice preview of what this next lesson is going to be about in the lesson introduction. As I click on this arrow on the bottom right-hand corner center of my screen, I'm then going to be at the lesson introduction page. This is so important, seventh graders. This is where you have lesson goals. We all need goals in our life. Maybe you have goals and ambitions outside of school. We also need goals when we're learning. We need to understand, what is the end goal? What are we going to try to be able to do by the end of this lesson? So you'll see 4 bullet points here. In this first lesson, we are using reading strategies to help us understand Julius Caesar Act 1 and to be able to answer comprehension questions. This is written by Shakespeare. If you have read Shakespeare before, you know that this is not written in modern day English language. So it might take you some time along with using reading strategies to help you understand what's going on in this play. We're also going to analyze the impact of form and structure, including soliloquy, on a drama's meaning. That's a key word here, soliloquy. We're going to understand the meaning of words and phrases, including soliloquy, and explain how the parts of the plot affect a play. Now, we've been talking a lot about how the parts of a plot affect a story, but now we're going to talk about how it affects a play, which is very similar. Consider how different elements of plot impact the story's meaning or theme. I'm thinking back, as a student, I'm showing you what it is to be successful. I'm thinking back to anything prior that I've learned about plot development. Oh, I remember that characters and even setting help contribute to a plot. They help move a plot forward. I also remember that dialogue in short stories help contribute to a plot. Now, the dialogue in a play is going to look a little different, but a play is all about dialogue, right? We have characters acting and interacting with one another. So it'll be important to pay attention to the relationships between characters in this play. All right, as a student, I'm also going to make sure I'm paying attention and putting in my notes these keywords. You might be a student who uses digital notes, or you might be a student who uses a notebook, a pen and pencil, or gel pens, markers, whatever you do. These are keywords that you need to look out for. And this goes with any lesson you're completing in English class. The other thing I'd like to point out, and some students really utilize these student guides, is if you click on the student guide here, it's going to open up a document on your computer. I highly recommend printing out student guides and using them as your notes. You can even hole punch them and put them into a binder. Then as you're working through the computer, you have a physical copy of notes that you can use to write down. It gives your eyes a break from the computer. I highly recommend student guides. I'm going to show you, if you've never downloaded a student guide, hopefully you have by now, but I'd highly recommend downloading that student guide. So a student guide is going to look like this. You can type onto the Microsoft Word document. You need to make sure you click Enable Editing up top. And this should be used as you're working through every lesson. When you get to the end of each unit, you should have 16 of these that you've used and taken notes on throughout each lesson. This is what it means to be a successful student. Again, you'll see that the goals for the lesson are also here. You can even check them off. Maybe once you feel like you've reached this goal, it's good to keep track of your own learning. You could change it a different color, depending on if you print it out or use it on the computer. You'll then see your keywords are here, and then the whole lesson structure is here. Again, you should be taking notes as you read and as you go through the lessons. Simply clicking through the lesson pages is not going to lead to your success. All right, so let's get back to Julius Caesar. So once I'm going through the lesson introduction, I'll then be almost there to my before reading. Again, we have the same structure of our lessons. We always have a lesson introduction, before you read, a learn, explore, and then read. And this changes, the get ready changes every lesson. So again, before you read, you're going to get a good historical context as well as a vocabulary lesson for some words that may not be familiar to you. Again, I highly recommend making sure that these words are put into your English notebook for your success. Along with that, you can also consider other vocabulary strategies that we've discussed in English class. It's good to get an idea of Shakespeare, since this is who we're reading, Shakespeare play. So make sure you spend some time doing that before you start reading. Again, it's good to get a good historical background of this play before reading. You may have learned about the Roman Empire and Julius Caesar in other courses or in other grade levels, which is excellent. Make sure you draw upon that knowledge, anything you know about it, even jot it down. What do you know already? Have you ever heard of a KWL chart? That's called, what do you know? What do you want to know? So anyways, make sure you go through these before reading pages. I'm going to show you one other thing to keep in mind. Now, the characters and setting in the play are also explained here, and how to pronounce the tricky names. This is important, and we'll go over this in our live flipped follow-up class. But the names you'll see here, Octavius. Now, you may be familiar with word definitions in a dictionary where it gives you a pronunciation guide, or if you've been in a spelling bee, Mrs. Alexander has done spelling bees before. This is going to tell us how to pronounce the word. So then our bold here is going to give us that long vowel sound, Octavius. You can try this one on your own. Anyways, we'll go over this in a flipped follow-up session. So if you attend that, look for the recording, or go ahead and open up your book and try it on your own. So once we get to the read section, you'll again notice that this is really helping us understand how to read a playwright, which is different than a short story. You'll see that the names of the actors or characters are listed differently than with dialogue. We have two announcers in this play. They will serve as like narrators of the play. Again, there's a lot of I've added this learn section here. If you would like to, this will be optional if you'd like to take extra time looking through the life of Julius Caesar. This is an optional part of this lesson. Furthermore, I'll show you a few other things, resources. This is called Big Universe. I'll show you how to get here, but what's really cool is you can really research any topic that you'd like to find an ebook. So I searched Julius Caesar. You'll see that there's a Shakespeare play. It's a little different version than what we have in class, but this Big Universe library is really cool if you want to learn more about the historical context of this play, or even just more about this, about Julius Caesar. You also will be using this for your research paper that's happening at the end of Julius Caesar. Keep that in mind. We're doing a research report on a topic relating to Rome or Julius Caesar at the end of this play in lesson 4.16. So you'll have to gather some outside sources, depending on what topic you choose, to write a research report on that. All right, so let's get back here. We're finally at Act 1. I know I talked a lot, but I'd like to read a little bit of this with you in this flipped preview video before you start reading it on your own. I'm going to read some of the stage directions, which are always in parentheses. As you're reading, that's going to give you an idea of what's going on in the play. In the actual live performance of the play, these would not be read aloud, but to help you understand the setting and what's going on with the characters, I may read some of it out loud. Are you ready? Act 1. I'm going to skip the announcer part on page 12 and get right to the good stuff. The cobbler and citizens come on stage, happily shouting, "Hail Caesar!" and waving flowery tree branches. They throw petals like confetti. 2 Roman officers, Flavius and Marellus, stop them angrily to make them go home. Flavius. "Hence! Home, you idle creatures! You get home! Is this a holiday?" To the cobbler. "You, sir, what trade are you?" The cobbler. He takes off his sandal and holds it out. "Truly, sir, I am a cobbler." He pretends to sew it. "Thou art a cobbler, aren't thou?" "I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes." He sews some more. "When they are in great danger, I recover them." His friends laugh. "But," Flavius says, "wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about these streets?" The cobbler with a grin as he puts his sandal back on again. "Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes to get myself into more work." His friends laugh again. "But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." They all shout, "Hail Caesar!" and "Hail Caesar!" and they throw in flowers. Announcer 1 says, "The officers are angry because the crowd used to cheer the dead leader Pompey in the same way." Marellus with anger. "Wherefore rejoice? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things." He shakes his fist. "Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not Pompey?" He points to Pompey's statue. The townsmen look ashamed as Marellus continues, reminding them how they admired Pompey in the past. "Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yeah, to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot appear, have you not made a universal shout?" The citizens nod in agreement, sadly. Still scolding, Marellus goes on. "And do you now call out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers? In his way," he points at Caesar's statue, "that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood?" He points again to Pompey's statue. Angrily, he pushes them off. "Begone! Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, and pray to the gods." That is the end of this. We'll continue reading more, and you'll continue reading more in your lesson. We will be doing a live class performance. We will need actors. We will need artists. We will need people to help the technical stage crew. We will need a student director. We will need all these things. It'll be a grand